Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we need to talk about something deeply disturbing happening in the state of Tennessee. The Republican-controlled state Senate just passed a bill pushing a curriculum that tells kids the only way to be successful is by following a strict life script. Graduate high school, get a job or go to college, get married, then have kids. In that order. And if this sounds like indoctrination to you, it's because it absolutely is. And yet, the same people who are pushing this are the same ones who have spent years screaming about lgbtqia plus individuals and educators, both of which I happen to be, are brainwashing kids just by existing. So with that, I feel pretty qualified to talk about this today. Now, this is one of the most blatantly queerphobic, ableist, misogynistic, totalitarian policies that I've seen in quite a while. And we need to talk about the harm this does, not just to queer kids, but to anyone who doesn't fit within their rigid worldview. So let's learn about it, talk about it, and discuss what we can do about it.
And on this journey, one more love unraveled. I finally learned to love me for me.
Now, I only learned about this yesterday through a TikTok that came up in my FYP, posted by the Tennessee State Democrats. They shared clips from the debate on the Senate floor, and it's wild. I'm going to play the video and react to it with all of you.
This bill sets out required content in Tennessee and family life curriculum, and briefly stated, the success sequence is accomplishing the following milestones in the following order. Obtain a high school diploma or its equivalency. Enter the workforce, a technical school or post-secondary school. Get married, then have children. Some children are not privileged to recognize that or live within that, and so in these classes, these children will be given this key to success.
This is a step too far because I graduated from high school, obtained my degree, entered the workforce, did not complete the last two steps, marriage or children, and I still think that I'm a success. So I don't understand why it is important to incorporate this level of indoctrination into our schools.
Teaching a curriculum that you are less than if you are a single parent. A curriculum that's telling me I'm less than many of you because I chose to be a single parent. That doesn't make my mother less than because she raised a current sitting senator when she became a single parent. It is not our job in public schools to be dictating or be forcing kids to say, if you're married, you're less than. Leave that to the church. Leave that to the household. Leave that to private entities and organizations. But in the public school, we need to be making all kids, regardless of what their family situation, feel valued, educated, and supported. That is our job. And give them the tools and resources to get good grades, to go off to college, to go to technical school, to choose the path they want in life. But if you are not married, does not mean that you are less than anybody else. I think this bill is misguided, it's very offensive, and I'm living proof that this bill has no merit.
Ayes 25, 5 nays.
So I guess the message here is single people are just doomed for failure. Great messaging, Tennessee. All right, so let's break this down. This TikTok perfectly captures why this bill is so dangerous. You can literally see the Republicans spelling it out for you. They aren't just encouraging marriage and children. They're treating it as a requirement for a good life. And if you don't follow this exact plan, well, according to them, you're just not successful. This isn't just absurd, it's dangerous. For a while now, Republicans have had this huge panic over declining birth rates. They think that they need to force people to think that they need kids. A big part of that they're not actually addressing is that it's super expensive to have kids right now. They're also not considering the fact that just not everybody wants kids, and there's nothing wrong with that. but they need future consumers. They need future voters. That's where that stuff's coming from. And to the point of that second speaker in the video, Democratic Senator Ramesh Akbari, I would say that I too have led a pretty successful life. I worked hard, got a high school diploma, bachelor's degree, went back and got my master's degree, during which I maintained a 4.0 GPA through the entirety of my master's program, while also teaching middle school full-time. I self-published my first book, which within its first 6 weeks has sold over 300 copies, which is not an easy task for a self-published book of poetry or of anything in 2025, let alone any year. I've maintained a full-time position, added coaching positions. All of these things are what success is always supposedly meant. On top of that, I've garnered friendships that last, helped my community both in person and online, worked with a multitude of nonprofits like Habitat for Humanity and the Dear Jack Foundation. But because I don't have children, and because I'm not married, now I'm considered, as the last speaker in that video, another Democratic Senator, London Lamar, as she put it, I'm considered less than. That's the message they want the next generations to learn. So let's get this straight, since apparently straight is the only thing that matters here for these lawmakers anyway. For years, conservatives have accused LGBTQIA plus people, especially teachers like me, of indoctrinating kids. We get told that mentioning LGBTQIA plus identities is forcing an agenda. There's headlines all the time right now of teachers getting told that they have to take down inclusive posters, literally just things that say "you belong here." We've been told that acknowledging same-sex couples in class books is confusing kids, that events like drag queens reading books to kids is an act of abuse, that even discussing different gender identities is somehow corrupting young minds. I've even heard that teaching pronouns is an offense to people. And then ironically, those same people don't know what a pronoun is, because they'll say things like, well, my pronouns are pretty princess. I've seen a video where somebody said that. Neither of those are even pronouns. That is an adjective and a noun. But now those same politicians are literally legislating a required life path in public schools. Let's get this on the record right now. That's not education. What it actually is what we call chrononormativity, the societal expectations of one's life path. The same right things at the same right times, following the social timeline of milestones. What that is propaganda. This bill isn't just bad, it's dangerous. I'm aromantic and asexual, meaning that I don't experience romantic or sexual attraction the way that society expects that you do. And let me tell you, one of the biggest struggles for people like me is the constant pressure to fit into a life script that was never meant for us. And now, Tennessee wants to teach kids that not following that script makes them less successful? Let's be clear about this. Not everyone wants to get married. Not everyone wants kids. And some people legally couldn't get married until very recently. And if Project 2025 has its way, those rights could vanish. Not just for queer couples, but they also want to do away with interracial relationships and ban interracial marriage too. This curriculum doesn't just erase aro and ace people. It tells all LGBTQIA plus youth that their futures are less valid unless they conform to heteronormative expectations. Let's not kid ourselves. We all know that queer youth face higher rates of depression and anxiety due to societal rejection. Now imagine growing up in a state that literally teaches you that you're failing at life just for being who you are. This is blatantly queerphobic, and if, again, Project 2025 has its way, blatantly racist. No question about it. This bill isn't just a slap in the face to LGBTQIA plus people either. It's also deeply ableist and misogynistic. By pushing the idea that having children is part of the success sequence, it completely disregards people who can't have kids due to medical reasons, people who don't want kids, people who are constantly told that their worth is tied to their ability to bear children. This curriculum doesn't just pressure kids into a rigid life path. It literally teaches them that their value depends on whether they can reproduce. Heaven forbid you have a medical condition that makes you unable to do so. And imagine the harm that this rhetoric adds to the already heavy grief of miscarriage. Now you're adding a message of failure on top of that. It's just insidious. And even for those who can and do reproduce, it tells them that marriage has to come first. But marriage isn't for everyone. Sometimes it may even be safer for all involved to not be together. So this tells people that if they don't try to make an unsafe dynamic work, they aren't successful. They're less than. All for the sake of trying to protect their child and themselves. Plus, we can't deny that teen pregnancy is going to happen. It just is. This does nothing to help those parents either. It only shames them. If these lawmakers really wanted to address that, then complete comprehensive sex education is the way to go. Funding for that education is the solution. But this, it's not education. It's a dystopian nightmare. And this isn't just happening in Tennessee. Ever since Trump took office, both in his first term and now with his second, this type of radical right-wing push has only accelerated. We've seen things like attempts to shut down the Department of Education, calls to defund public institutions like PBS and NPR. Just yesterday, the day before recording this, he's going after the Smithsonian. He cracks down on which journalists can report on government actions. They are attacking Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, illegally detaining and deporting both immigrants and even US-born citizens. And now they're literally reprogramming public education to push a government-approved life path. This is not helping kids or anyone. It's about control. Listen, I may not be a Tennessee resident, but as a public educator, I will not stay silent while the government forces this kind of indoctrination into schools. As an aero-ace person who struggled with depression most of my life because I didn't have access to words like aromantic and asexual to understand why I felt so different and constantly felt the pressure to compare myself to others, I will not let that same thing happen to anyone else. And simply as a person with empathy, who understands that even when you do have ambitions, life sometimes can take you in a different direction. I can't stand by and watch this. If you're in Tennessee or anywhere in the US, speak out. Call your representatives. Show up at school board meetings. Demand that education serves all students, not just the ones who fit a conservative ideal. Share this video to spread awareness. Contact Tennessee representatives and voice opposition. Support LGBTQIA+ advocacy groups. And if you're someone who feels othered by this kind of rhetoric, whether you're aro, ace, queer, child-free, or just tired of politicians dictating your life, I see you. Your worth is not measured by marriage or kids. You define your own success, not them. And finally, please, please vote in every election, not just presidential, gubernatorial, or Senate races. Vote in primaries, vote in local elections, vote to support school referendums, vote for judges, for school boards, and stay informed. My biggest regret is not being more vocal last fall. I posted videos encouraging folks to vote, but I should have given more information. I admit that my faith that people who said that they wouldn't vote or would vote third party out of protest, that they would have had a change of heart and realized what was at stake, I was wrong. What I should have done is discuss the real dangers on the other side of the aisle. That all those issues that folks were choosing not to vote out of protest, the other side of the aisle never even had to address a position because they knew their voters didn't care anyway. That's where your vote kind of went, to those who didn't even care about the issue that you were protesting for. I know this because I grew up in what was then a very conservative area in my childhood, and now it's a deeply red-hatted nightmare. And no, those red hats aren't for the Wisconsin Badgers. I watched as civil debates became more uncivilized, and hatred and fear of others in the name of faith and patriotism of all things infiltrated the hearts of so many I grew up around. I should have said something then, but I'm saying something now. As for me, you can bet I'm voting in every election too. Like this coming Tuesday, April 1st, when the rest of my state of Wisconsin and I show Elon Musk that we cannot and will not be bought. I'll be voting for Susan Crawford for Wisconsin Supreme Court. I'll be yet again this year voting for Jill Underly for state superintendent. I encourage my fellow Wisconsinites to do the same. And if you're in a state with a special election coming up too, please do your research, spread the word, post where folks can find their polling places, just as I'm doing in the description of this video for my state ahead of the April 1st election. And remember, your voice, your health, your education, your future, you matter. Show them that you won't take that for granted. If this video resonated with you, please give it a like, comment with your thoughts, reactions. If you found any similar dystopian legislation getting passed around that we should talk about, please post that so that we all are in the know, and subscribe to keep this conversation going. And if this is your first time seeing one of my videos, if you want to dive deeper into the Aro Ace experience and learn more about what I talked about earlier with that, you can check out my book, Limitless, Poetry of an Aromantic and Asexual Journey. It's a collection of poetry exploring life outside the rigid expectations that society sets for us. In a lot of ways, my book is kind of a slap in the face to that bill. They try to limit what life can be. No one can tell you what your life is. The possibilities are limitless. This wasn't the planned video that I had for today, but sometimes plans have to change. I'll see you next time with the video that I originally had planned. Thanks for watching, and take care of yourselves and others. Remember, we're stronger together.